Hello and welcome to Retirement Today. My name is Jenna Cairns, founder and financial advisor at Beacon Wealth Advisory. And we're here to help get you to and through retirement with financial peace of mind. If you'd like to listen to this podcast or any of our past podcasts, we invite you to go out to Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and of course, if you're viewing, we have a YouTube channel. So we invite you to go out to YouTube, put in the search engine Beacon Wealth Advisory, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. And then you're notified every week we put out a new video. And our heart in putting out these videos every week is just to provide as much financial education as possible to help you be confident about making that big transition into retirement. If you'd like to schedule a consultation and ask some questions about what you heard today or get a second opinion on your retirement plan, feel free to call us anytime at 1-800-994-8993. Again, that's 1-800-994-8993. And before we get going with the show today, I always love to bring on my co-host, Jaclyn Gladhill. Jaclyn, how you doing today?
I am good, Jenna. It's great to be here. And, I'm going to throw you a little curveball today and say that for some reason, I am so hungry. I could go for like a big breakfast right now. I don't know, like Eggs Benedict is my
Oh,
favorite. So I really could use that right now.
yes, yes. Oh my goodness, that does sound good.
What is your favorite breakfast food?
Uh, my favorite breakfast food, I really like to make an egg scramble and put like vegetables in the
Okay.
eggs and cheese. I make it really cheesy with like cream cheese and everything. So I
Ooh.
love an egg scramble. Always love to make French toast for my kids, put the
Mhm.
cinnamon and all that in there. But we've got some great breakfast places over here in Overland Park too. So if you're ever in town,
Yes.
we'll be
Well, have
going
it.
out to
So,
eat.
first of all, there's only one way to do correct scrambled eggs. So, how do you scramble it? With a whisk, a fork, or a blender?
Okay, I'm old fashioned. I use the whisk, you
Okay.
know. And my girls actually really like to help me make eggs, so they usually crack the eggs. Now,
Yes.
sometimes there are some eggshells that happen to fall in the bowl. We're trying to get better at that, but it is what it is. So, how about you?
Yes.
What do you use?
For the scrambled eggs, yes, a whisk will do just fine. But the best scrambled eggs with the most like whip to them have been in a blender. And I
Oh,
got that idea from somebody, and now it's like, but then you dirty dishes, right? It's just more dishes that you dirty. And so there's only a certain amount of time that you can really use the blender, in my opinion.
yeah, yeah, that's true. Well, that's going all out using a blender. They probably are a little better with a blender, so I may have to try that. Thank you.
Yes, yes. Well, now that we're hungry and now that our listeners are looking forward to their breakfast today,
Yes.
I'm excited about this topic. So let's kind of get into it. What does, the five pillars of enhanced legacy planning look like? And I know that we've talked about, this month being kind of a series of planning. So Jenna, where are we going to start?
Yeah. Well, I am very passionate about this topic because I've seen what can happen when families don't do enhanced legacy planning. And I know when you hear the word legacy planning, what comes to mind for you, Jaclyn?
That's a great question. I think about, family and generations.
Good, good. Some people, and that's great. I do as well because I feel like that word legacy is just very inspiring and it's more than just about the money. But a lot of people, when they hear estate planning or legacy planning, just think of like a will, a trust, maybe even some life insurance or those legal documents sitting in the drawer somewhere.
Mhm.
But like we've talked about on the show, Jaclyn, a will doesn't prepare your children. A
Mhm.
trust doesn't prevent family conflict altogether. And an estate document alone doesn't preserve wealth for generations, right?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely, and they all have to work together towards a plan.
Exactly. Yes, they have to coordinate very well. And I will tell you, I can't say again how important this is. With all the years I've been in the business And I know, Jaclyn, you have personal stories you've shared that when people fail to do enhanced legacy planning, it really can create a painful ripple effect that lasts long after you're gone. And without a clear plan, your loved ones really are struggling. And I don't know about you, I don't want my relatives to have to struggle while they're grieving, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And hard earned assets can be lost to taxes, legal battles, or just poor management, which really undoes a lifetime of work and sacrifice. And families sometimes fracture over misunderstandings or unequal distributions. And the legacy you hope to leave of love and stability and purpose can transform into stress and resentment. So I
Mhm.
really think of enhanced planning, Jaclyn, as more not just about helping families with their money, but I really feel like a peacemaker, right? Like just protecting the peace in families, preserving the values, making sure their story is carried forward in the way that they would want. Just because, like I said, I've just seen what can happen, so much um, chaos and stress if people don't do this planning, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I do just want to say, Jenna, as women, whether, our listeners and viewers, whether you're daughters, mothers, business owners like yourself, Jenna, or advisors like yourself, we often see firsthand how family dynamics determine whether wealth strengthens, relationships or the family dynamics, or
Mhm.
truly fractures them. And I think as women, we come from a very emotional, sympathetic side. So we see, the emotions behind money, which there are a lot of them.
Yes, yes, thank you for bringing that up. I do love that. I think we bring a different perspective to financial planning, enhanced planning, and sometimes I think as women, we have a lot of us just really great intuition, and so we
Mhm.
can often sense if there's a conversation going on with maybe some undercurrents of different emotions that people may have talking about this topic. And so you're right. I do think as women, we do bring just such a unique perspective to this kind of planning. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, we're going to talk about the 5 pillars of enhanced legacy planning. These are the main areas that you need to have covered if you want to really have peace of mind around that topic. Uh, because again, legacy isn't just about what you leave behind, it really continues from generation to generation. And the very first pillar, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Is financial structure. And so when you look at the foundation, the structure of a very good financial enhanced legacy plan, it's going to cover the estate tax efficiency, trust structures, if there's a business succession planning, liquidity strategies, beneficiary alignment. All of those things are essential, but I'll tell you where people really get it wrong is they treat the documents like the finish line.
Mhm.
We talked
Yeah,
about that last
like
last week.
yeah,
Uh,
just the signature at the end, it's done, we can set it aside, and especially on the trust, it's not the case.
exactly. Yes, you've been listening. I love it. So to illustrate that even more, I had a client we'll call David and Linda for privacy purposes, very successful business owners. They had a beautifully drafted estate plan, multiple trusts, tax efficiency structure. Everything looked just perfect on paper. But when we got together and I asked them the question, have your children ever seen this plan at all? They both said no. And their daughter thought she would inherit the business. Their son assumed it would be sold. So they had very different ideas of what was going to happen. And neither knew that there was a charitable trust involved.
Hmm.
So a lot of that money would go to a charity when they passed, and the kids didn't even know. Can you believe
Mhm.
that?
Yeah, I mean, that's that's kind of the reality I feel for a lot of people though, Jenna.
Yep. Yeah. So the communication was really non-existent. And can you imagine if your parents passed away and you found out that, what you thought you were going to inherit was all going to a charity? I
Yeah.
mean, that might be tough, right?
Yeah, and this situation, sounds like kind of what happens to the structure or the foundation without strategy, and it can become pretty rocky, not
Yeah.
not firm.
Yeah. Yes, you can say that again, rocky.
Yes.
So financial structure is like the foundation, like we talk about, but it's not the heartbeat. Enhanced legacy planning does mean coordinating proactively with estate planning attorneys, CPAs, and then your financial advisors. So really, all three of those people in an ideal situation are working closely together, and so you need to pick advisors that can work well with each other, communicate well, and truly understand how all of this works. It's
Mhm.
not just about minimizing taxes. It's about maximizing clarity. So the people that you choose that are advisors also have to be, in my opinion, master communicators if you want it done right. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jenna, we talked about pillar one. Now, let's talk about pillar two. So, air preparation. This is kind of where the emotions start to show up, I think.
Yes, they sure do. And I know we talked a little bit about this last time too, but there's generational wealth that just sort of disappears, and then there's some that survives. There's a well-known statistic from US World News and Report that says 70% of wealth is lost by the second generation. And get this, Jaclyn, 90% by the third. So 90% of wealth is lost by the third generation. Can you
Mhm.
believe that?
I mean, yeah, and it's going to be almost worse right now because of the great wealth transfer and, things from baby boomers, but that's a whole different topic. So we can go
Yeah.
into that another time.
Right, right. But it's rarely because of poor investments. Now, sometimes it can be because of poor investments, but many times it's because the heirs weren't prepared.
Mhm.
And I've been working with a family for years that's created an incredible amount of net worth from scratch, business owners, first generation wealth, just incredibly disciplined. They work so hard, and they were able to provide a great lifestyle for their children. Their children, quite frankly, grew up in abundance, private schools, travel, every opportunity out there. But money never really was discussed. And when the parents passed away unexpectedly within 2 years of each other, the children inherited significant wealth in their early 30s. No financial training, no governance. So within 5 years, one sibling had invested heavily in speculative ventures. The other was funding a lifestyle that required a lot of withdrawals, and they stopped speaking.
Wow. I mean,
Probably
that's
not the way that the parents would have liked that to go, right?
yeah, absolutely. And that's pretty heartbreaking. And honestly, it happens a lot more than I think people realize.
Yeah, it really does. And it is preventable though. I mean, heir preparation includes, age appropriate financial education. I mean, I'm even starting to educate my girls that are 7 and 6 about money, and just, you have to work hard to get money, right? So we have a sticker chart that we do, where basically they get money if they do certain chores. But I'm also trying to teach them patience with money. So if they do it for 1 week, they get X amount of dollars. If they can wait 2 weeks to get paid but still work hard, they get more amount of money. So I'm trying to teach them, not only working hard, but patience, because I think patience is one of the biggest factors too in whether or not someone is successful. Do you think, like, with this social media age, a lot of people just like expect like everything to happen like
Yeah,
this
instant
now?
gratification for sure.
Yes, and it's
And
almost like there's no patience, and so I'm trying to teach my kids, who also love iPads and, all of that stuff, that things aren't always like a quick fix. Like, sometimes you
mhm,
have to be patient to get where you want to get, even financially, right?
mhm. Yeah.
So you can give age appropriate financial education, gradual involvement in investment discussions as they get older, transparency around responsibility. And this is my favorite one, teaching stewardship versus entitlement.
Mhm.
And that's where I think Again, the feminine perspective is really a unique one. And again, I think there's a wonderful, wonderful male financial advisors out there, but I think that the female perspective can add a different perspective as well. Like, we always ask questions when we're doing enhanced planning pretty deep that get around the emotion, Jaclyn. Like, how will this shape your children's character with this
Mhm.
legacy? What habits are you reinforcing? And with the kids, are we building confidence or dependency?
Mhm.
So it's, legacy is really a lot about capability and not just capital, right? It's important both, but really you want to make sure that the timing is right and that the people that you're leaving this to are capable of being good stewards of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so on to pillar number 3. Let's discuss, the family communication and kind of governance around, the dynamics and stuff like that. So this pillar is going to be much more, transformational, and at least, kind of the least discussed pillar. I think that this one gets often overlooked. So
It
family communication and governance, which sounds formal, but the truth is it's really about how do we make decisions together? How do we have that communication and how do we discuss problems?
Yes, yes, I love that, and I know we talked about in our show last week just how it doesn't have to be like a formal board meeting, but I liked what you said in the last show too, Jaclyn, about just how this should really be a conversation with your kids so that they do feel like they're a part of it, right? People
Mhm.
tend to buy into things that they feel like they're making some of the decisions with. And so it's so important to have clarity. And I don't know about you, but when I think about relationships, whether it's family relationships or friends or, whatever kind of relationship you're looking at, I just feel like the main cause of relationships breaking down is communication. Either a
Mhm.
lack of communication, a miscommunication, not enough communication, whatever that may be. And so, do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's in every relationship that you have.
Yes, I agree. So I really think the communication piece of this is so important with your family. Like I said, it doesn't have to be a formal boardroom type meeting, but just being very transparent and providing clarity to the family, I think is so important. So, like, who makes the decisions around the family business, the vacation property, any charities that we want to continue to support? Investment strategy changes. These are all topics that really need to be communicated about. And so without clarity, a lot of assumptions can happen to fill in the gaps. And I think we know what assumptions can do, right?
Mhm.
And so I think I shared, I do love facilitating family meetings when we get to the point where we've created the legacy plan and now maybe a client just needs some extra support in having that family meeting. And so sometimes I'll offer to be a part of it, or I'll give them a conversation guide and kind of practice with them just to make sure that it is communicated very clearly. And the goal of this family meeting, obviously, again, is just to not have it go sideways and have people feel trusted and cared about, but make sure that it keeps the peace too, right?
Yeah.
And so I once facilitated a family meeting for three adult siblings that inherited a real estate portfolio. This is interesting. One sibling assumed everything would be liquidated and split evenly. Another wanted to hold long term for passive income. The third wanted to actively manage and grow it. And they never had this conversation before dad passed away.
Yeah. And that's tough, but I
It
think,
is.
you know, to kind of move this along, I think, the structure of the family meeting really should have just a clear agenda, shared
Yep.
goals, individual preferences, risk tolerance, time commitment, which is huge for some people, and decision making structure. And then,
Yep.
Jenna, what do they kind of agree on at the end? What's the goal?
Yeah. Yeah. They did end up agreeing. which I was happy about. They basically agreed to keep 60% long term, sell 40% for diversification. And they did appoint one sibling as a managing partner with defined compensation to manage all this.
Mm-hmm.
And the tension just dropped. Not
Wow.
because they agreed on everything, but because expectations were clear. And so I think when you have this clarity, it replaces ambiguity. You know what word I'm trying to say,
Yes.
with structure, right?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
so yeah, I mean, enhanced planning isn't just financial IQ, it's emotional IQ. So you really do have to have excellent communication and really be clear when you're having this family
Mhm.
meeting. Um, and just watch for any emotional undercurrents that could be going on, right?
Yes, absolutely. All right, so on to pillar number 4. So we're talking
Yeah.
about values and, kind of what you envision for, like, philanthropy. See, we're both struggling with words today. Um,
Something's in the water
Philanthropy.
today, I tell you.
Yes, and, just kind of what you envision for funds or charity giving, sorts of things like that. So, let's talk
Yeah.
about kind of the meaning behind money, without making it kind of last, but just the meaning and the purpose and also back to the intention of it.
Yeah, I love that. Um, well, being charitable is often treated like a tax strategy, but in enhanced legacy planning, it's about identity. So, what does the family stand for? I think that's really important because when you give your money meaning, it has a tendency to last more and be more rewarding when you're giving money away. And so I worked with a second generation wealth creator. We'll call her Maria for privacy purposes. And she inherited a lot of wealth, but felt very disconnected from it. It kind of felt like her father's money, not hers. And so I asked her a question one time. I said, "What problem in the world makes you angry enough to act?" And she just sat there in silence for a while. I said, take your time, think about this. This is kind of a heavy hitter question here." And she thought about it and she said, educational inequality.
Mhm.
Educational inequality really bothers me, Jenna. And so within a year, she established a donor advised fund, involved her teenage children in grant decisions, and they even had an annual family giving meeting. And so her relationship with her money really was transformed because it became purposeful and it had meaning.
Yeah. Well, and now her children, can associate wealth with almost responsibility and not just the privilege. And they really have the purpose, intention, and meaning behind it.
Yeah, I love that. Isn't that great?
Yes. All right.
And oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, let's move on to pillar number 5 here.
Yeah.
So, ongoing review and adaptation, which I think is huge. This ongoing year after year, keep touching base with things. So, Jenna, let's explain this one.
Yeah. Well, Jaclyn, you can probably agree that it's great to come up with a plan, and I think everybody just feels less anxious when there's clarity and when there's a plan. Planning is great, but does life always go as planned?
No, we wish. We wish we had a crystal ball.
I know. What did you say that one time? We come up with a plan and God laughs, right? No, I'm
Yeah.
kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But no, you can have a plan and life can change, right? There's marriages, there's divorces, there's new grandchildren, there's business exits, there's health changes. And what about the tax law changes that happen, you know?
Mhm.
And so many people, love their family, they come up with this estate plan and they just let it sit for 10 to 15 years. That's kind of the average time people let their estate plans sit. But really enhanced legacy planning includes annual legacy reviews. Yes, once a year, I'm recommending you touch base with your attorney just to make sure there's nothing that's changed that you need to update with your estate plan, and your financial advisor you should be meeting with at least once a year. You need to keep track of beneficiaries, which we've talked about, revisiting family goals, evaluating liquidity, and just evaluating your children or your beneficiaries' readiness to actually inherit these funds. Because I mean, regular review isn't just administrative, it's also protective, right?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely, Jenna. All right. Well, we are running out of time for this episode. So let's kind of reach out to our listeners that are with us here. So we went through the 5 different pillars. Jenna,
Mhm.
can you just, kind of summarize what those 5 pillars were once again?
Yes. If you remember, the first one was about financial structure. So making sure that foundation is there, looking at all the trust documents, business succession planning, just that basic foundation. The second pillar was heir preparation, making sure the people you're leaving this money to are actually prepared with education and just being ready to handle this legacy. The third pillar we talked about is the importance of family communication and governance. The fourth pillar we talked about was making sure that your money has meaning and aligns with your values and charitable goals. And the fifth pillar that we talked about was just making sure that you do ongoing reviews and adaptation with your financial team, which again should be an estate planning attorney, a financial advisor, and a CPA. Those 3 people should be working very closely together as well on your legacy plan.
Well, that sounds amazing. So, Jenna, for our listeners out there, who are thinking they want to learn more about this, I know that, Jenna, you are offering our listeners to get, the 2026 Enhanced Planning Guide, as well as the Legacy Family Meeting Conversation Guide, both
Mhm.
key parts in this conversation and our future episodes here. To anyone that calls in to schedule a complimentary consultation, that's huge. So, Jenna, how can they get a hold of you to get this scheduled?
Yes, we would love to help people with enhanced legacy planning. Like I said, it's a passion of ours, and we want you to build it intentionally and wisely year after year. So you can get a hold of us to schedule the consultation at 1-800-994-8993. Again, that's 1-800-994-8993.
Well, perfect, Jenna. Thank you. And I know listeners and viewers, please make sure to check out our YouTube channel, Beacon Wealth Advisory, and subscribe so you can be notified every time a new video is out. And also, we are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon. So please check those out and follow so you can also be notified. But, Jenna, this has been a great episode, and I look
Mhm.
forward to more of these in our series. So thank
Great.
you, Jenna. That does it for today's episode of Retirement Today with our host, Jenna Cairns.